Hi, Hamish Conway here from Cell Global, and welcome to TACOS Tuesday, episode number 19. And with me again today is Sebastian Hargraves. Welcome, Seb.
Thanks. Good to be back. You went solo last week without me.
I did, and no, it's good to have you back. I'm pretty excited about this one here because we are doing well. We did the halftime show a couple of weeks ago. Now we're doing the full-time show on Amazon Australia and the 2-week Black Friday deal window, and we're going to share our screen, show the stats, show the trends of what happened, and is pretty much on track with what we'd predicted. But I think you're going to find this really interesting, and also the takeaways that we've got from looking at our, so this is data from our client base, aggregated and anonymized. Then we've taken out any branded search. So if you've got a known brand, that isn't included in this data. It's just the category search terms, because we did that because we found that would take away any skewing of the data, and it's going to be more useful and relevant across that deal window. So we're going to go through that, but also, given by the time you're listening to this here, if you're listening to it on the day it lands, there's only really 10 to 12 days, maybe 14 if you're very lucky, of shopping left on Amazon. So we've got a quick 6 hot tips on what you can be doing from today through to Christmas to just capitalize on this last piece of the shopping window. All right, so that's the context, Seb. So how about I share my screen, and then let's dive into it. And just as I do that, you can just give any other context as well.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So category terms are going to be the best for you to use as a bit of a reference point with the data. Branded search, like Hamish mentions, is going to throw it out a little bit, or no, not a little bit, a lot, depending on how strong the brand is. So today's data that we'll show you will be that category search, which Hamish has up at the moment. So we've broken this down into 3 groups, which is impressions at the top. We have clicks in the middle, and then we have orders at the bottom there. So we'll start off with impressions and walk our way through each of these. The one thing I will say is that each of our brands has different strategies, different priorities, and so that does play into this data as well. Obviously, they might be doing something that maybe we don't even recommend, but they have their own priorities as well. And so based on what they're doing, that can affect the some of the performance too. But in general, this will give you a good guide. So the first thing you'll note is that the first day was the best day in regards to overall impressions. The second day was was good, not quite as good as the first day, but pretty good. And then you can see that drop off. And this is what we spoke about at the halftime show. We expect traffic to drop off through that middle period, and for that performance to kind of not be as good as we see shoppers kind of really looking around for a deal. We then see it kick back up for the November 29th period, and then stay kind of at the similar sort of impressions for those 3 days. What was interesting is the last day, the impressions were much, much lower than what we expected. Now, we're probably still waiting for a little bit of attribution to come through, so I do expect that to be a little bit higher. But interesting, the last day wasn't as big as what I thought it would be. I thought the last day would have been bigger. Part of what my thoughts are there is that some of the promotions even getting around from Amazon were, get in on the Black Friday deals before they end this weekend. Well, December 2nd is actually a Monday. When they see before they end this weekend, they potentially thought it was finishing on Sunday for a lot of the traffic. So that was interesting, but we did think the traffic would increase into the weekend with the, with people traditionally knowing the Black Friday deals. So that was the first insight.
Yeah. And maybe, I mean, like, it's interesting here, when the deal window started, Amazon was really the only retailer doing this, whereas in the weekend of Black Friday through Cyber Monday, everyone was on special. So that could also be a factor as well, while those numbers weren't as high.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the second one down is clicks. There's not much to talk here about the click side, but with the other thing we have there is CPC, which is cost per click. So this is how much every click cost you on average to get those clicks, right? And what you'll note is at the start there, I think that's $1.22. And then it moves down, at the lowest point, at the 24th, that's just nearly $1, I'd say. or maybe just below $1 there at November 24th. And then you can see from November 25th onwards, it really starts to kind of ramp its way back up until December 1st there. And so what we noticed is that the competition for, what other brands were running, with Black Friday deals was less at the beginning of the event. And then as it got closer to the typical, Black Friday deals, which is the November 29th, we saw that increase in competition, not only from like everyone running deals, like, so they were, actually turning their products onto promotion, but also they increased their advertising spend. And you can see that with the increase in the cost per click there. So that November 29th, that $1.32, then it went up to $1.40, then $1.38. So those numbers there are the highest CPC across the whole time frame that we had for the event. So that just indicates that it was getting more expensive to get those clicks. It cost more to get those. So, that normally happens for two reasons. One is that, that increased competitors running deals, but also that increased competition to get those placements, like those top of search placements, etc.
Good. Okay. So let's keep on going through the data, and then we'll the next slide we've got is like summarizing the data. And by the way, if you did want to, if you're just listening to this and you're curious about just seeing these graphs, we'll put it on our website under gosellglobal.com. Go to Knowledge Podcast episode 19, and we'll have a PDF there of the download of this data. So, all right, let's. Just before we jump onto the last one. We kind of skipped over click-through rate. Any comments on that? It's, kind of...
Yeah, not really. It stayed fairly steady. It did drop a little bit through the November 29th, 30th, and 1st. But not significantly. But, again, I think that's just people were shopping more than maybe they were, particularly on the Friday, like the 29th. An 80.89% kind of indicates, basically people were seeing our products but weren't clicking through to the listing. So either the price didn't entice them enough, which is likely because most people would have been there for price. So I'm assuming price probably wasn't as big as what they thought it was going to be. The price discount, that is.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So therefore not clicking. Excellent. Okay. But even, percentage points there all matter. Okay. So on to orders and conversion rate.
Yep. So orders and conversion rate, this is probably the one that surprised me the most in regards to how consistent the decline was. So conversion rate was the highest at the first day. Again, that first and second day are, those real primary drivers. Excluding that November 22nd, which, there was some of the things our clients were doing that boosted that. The first and second day were the best two from a conversion rate.
And why is conversion rate so high in those days?
So we think that one of the main reasons is because people know what they wanted to get. And so when they came to Amazon, they were already like preconditioned with, what they'd already, added to cart and were waiting to see what those products were. So they were just coming on Amazon to just make the purchase. And so that's why conversion rate was higher on those 2 days, particularly the first day. Second day, probably less, a bit less, but the first day for sure. But then from there, the conversion rate just continued to decline all the way through to the weekend. So even though the traffic, the orders, the clicks were all up on the weekend, the conversion rate was less. So that means that your ROAS is going to be worse, your ACOS is going to be worse because it's costing you more to convert those clicks that you are paying for.
Yeah. Interesting. And even just looking at the orders on the first day versus orders on the next best day was nearly 50% up on the next best day. So that is just the importance of the lead in, right? So
Absolutely.
Which is probably a good thing to just transition over. Hopefully this works here. There we go. Brilliant. All right. So talk to us about the key takeaways.
Yep. So key takeaways, first 2 days of the event, I think we spoke about this even before the event. We said that they were going to be the best based on the historical data we'd looked at. That remains true even for this one was a bit different because it was a longer event. So we weren't quite sure if it was going to follow the same pattern, but it does. the increased conversion and traffic on the first day suggests more shoppers knew what they wanted before coming to Amazon. So this is a good case for brand awareness before the event. So we did talk about sharing what our strategy was before the event, and part of that you would have remembered, or you can go back and listen to that episode. We talked about running sponsored brand awareness campaigns before the event, and this is why, because that first day it really locks them in to purchasing your product by building that awareness piece. And this is a good case study for why you would do that.
Good.
The next one was, these are some nuance statistics that just we know because we manage a lot of brands. So some things that we found out were when the deal badges got removed, so some of our brands lost their Black Friday deal badge, even though the price was still on discount, still the same price as it was when it had the deal badge. Without the deal badge, conversion rate significantly suffered. So the customer, even though they're going to get the product at the same price, they need to see the Black Friday deal badge on the product itself.
Did you get to the bottom of why that dropped off, or?
Well, they were a vendor, so in this case, it was just that they had to be at the lowest price in the last 30 days for them to have that, and they weren't in for that particular slot. So they were for the first few days of the event, and then weren't for the last days of the event. So
sure.
Yeah.
All right. Good. All right.
Yep.
And
next was the weekend's results were underwhelming. We kind of spoke about this, but for two reasons. I think that the competitiveness of the event over the weekend drove those more expensive clicks. So it's harder to hold those top of search placements and harder to get that, to convert that traffic. Or when I say harder, more expensive to convert it. Secondly, shoppers were picky, so resulting in a lower conversion rate. The shoppers at the start of the event, they just got in, got what they wanted and got out. The ones at the end of the event were shopping a lot more, and thus the conversion rate dropped off at the end of the event. One other nuance kind of finding that we found was premium brands, we mentioned this earlier, and brands that don't run discounts often benefited the most. And I think that's just because customers know when it's a true discount. And so we found that some brands that literally might not run any deals throughout the year except for Prime and Black Friday benefited significantly, like their sales more than 10x through this promotional event.
Excellent. All right. So in summary.
So in summary, if you've got a limited budget, focusing your ad spend on awareness in the lead up to the event and on the first 2 days will give you the best return on your ad spend. And that's, from the data, you can see that's going to return you the best. The other thing that we noted was consider pausing your sponsored brand headline ads, except for the first 2 days of the event. We saw cost per click for those headline ads, the ones you banner ads you see right at the top of search. We saw those cost per clicks double, more than double what they normally cost on the sponsored product side. And conversion rate was lower as well. Now, conversion rate generally always is lower on the headline ads, but the cost per click was significantly higher. So better to spend your money once the event has started, or even through that middle period. Just spend it on your sponsored product ads and not on your sponsored brand ads.
Interesting. So some good takeaways there, and this is probably one to mark down to have a look at when it comes to the next big deal window. When's that actually going to be? Seb, is it just until Prime Day next year?
There'll be Boxing Day coming up, obviously, at Christmas time.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that now. Anyway, so that's really Black Friday and what we found there. So hopefully, interesting there. So it's really about got to make the most of those first 2 days, and that's the lead into it. We're actually the cost per click, and people are kind of holding back, but that's where you want to invest so that you really smash it out of the park on those first 2 days. Then turning off sponsored brand through that middle period and just being really selective about what you do when it gets to the Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and really sponsored products is where you want to be, and probably worth a chat, before next time around to get the right strategy. So, this is all on the past, and we can't change the past, Seb, as it turns out. But what we like to do here is give people listening some actionable takeaways that they can benefit from now. And so we do have, by the time this lands, it's going to be approximately the 10th of December, and which will give people a run through maybe to the 23rd if you're lucky of December, depending on your delivery dates. But what can people do to maybe capitalize on what's already happened over the last 2 weeks, but certainly make the most of this next nearly 2 weeks? What are some tips?
Yeah, so firstly, I'd look at your historical data is probably where I would start. So if you were advertising or selling December last year, you want to look at that data and get as many insights as you can from that. That will give you, because each brand is different, and so there are unique insights to that. So that would be the first thing that I would say. Outside of that, the other things that you can do are be aware that like once your delivery date is after the Christmas date, you're going to see traffic drop off significantly.
Yeah.
And so once that delivery date's passed, people are just not going to shop. From our data, we see that probably like 6 days, 4 days before Christmas, it does start to get less. People are kind of worried that they're not going to get deliveries. Also, I think that sometimes the pressure on Amazon to deliver becomes quite great, and they'll start pushing things out and saying, we can't deliver this until, even though they do 1 day delivery, sometimes they push out their delivery dates to like after Christmas. So, that sort of 4 days before is roughly when we start to see that sort of drop off.
And I think like shoppers on Amazon getting near Christmas, they're not there for a deal. They're there for the convenience.
Yep.
So you don't need to be doing deals at this time of the year, at that point end of the
it's all about the delivery date.
Yeah.
So if you've got a faster delivery date than your competitor, you'll do way more sales than they will, because they're paying a premium at that point for convenience, and they just want the product as soon as possible.
So it's worth checking on your competitors, actually, isn't it? Because still in Australia, there's a number of them still doing fulfilled by merchant, or which certainly is a big disadvantage for them. But have a look, and it could be a time to maybe push a bit harder. Do you think on some of the ads compared to the competition? If you've got a really good offer.
Yeah, if you've got a good offer and a good delivery time, for just 3 or 4 days, you could push really aggressively on your advertising, and it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, good. And then Christmas Day happens, and there's actually Boxing Day, which is the first day of another deal window, actually. So you've got there's like 6 days through to the 31st, which the window kind of is, but we've got some clients that are only doing 4 days in that window. So how should people approach this period post Christmas? It might not be relevant for everyone, but if you are in that camp, what do you notice on it? Well, just even before you do that, like Seb is about to say, or may reiterate, that we're looking at data from last year on Boxing Day. Boxing Day was actually pretty bad. Then the 27th was better, that went up. So Christmas Day, Boxing Day, terrible, and then 27th things pick up. And my guess on that is they're public holidays, so people with family, or if they are going to go shop on Boxing Day, it's like, well, let's go to those shops, and they kind of go to the big box retailers and see what's happening in store for an experience, for an outing, rather than being on Amazon. But what else would you consider, Seb, in terms of the lessons even from what's just happened in that deal window that you can apply across to the Boxing Day?
Yeah, I think the buyer psychology is something you should always keep in your mind. The early adopters versus the latecomers. I think if you can keep that in your mind, you will always be able to benefit the most from it. I think the different brands definitely benefit different. So that 26 that I said about the traffic being the sales being bad, that was for most physical product type brands, but things like consumables and that do very well on the 26. So maybe because of parties and all that sort of stuff. So you do have a bit of a, depending on the brand and what you're doing. Again, that's where the historical data is really important. Just see what has happened and worked in the past. Will give you a good indication. So, but yeah, the buyer psychology is going to be the biggest thing. Just knowing that you're going to get the early birds or people that want to get in early, and then you're going to get the ones that are going to be late to the party.
Good. Excellent. Okay. Well, there you have it, folks. That's the, let me just stop sharing there. So that is the Black Friday Amazon Australia full-time show, and with some additional tips for the next deal window coming up. And so hopefully you found that useful. And we'll put again, if you go to the website, gosellglobal.com, look under knowledge podcasts, and then episode 19, and we'll have a PDF of those stats there for you to have a look at. So we've got, we're going to do one more podcast before the end of the year, and then Seb and I are going to have a well-earned break. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to break down lessons from 2024 in the Amazon ad space, and really just on Amazon what we've learned through the year. So that'll be a good one to tune into again. So thanks very much, and again, as always, if you do want to get a unique perspective on your Amazon ads and have Seb put your Amazon ads account under the spotlight in a good way, but really looking for opportunities there for you to avoid that wasted spend, find targeting opportunities that you're missing out on, and where you can be doubling down to really grow your sales. The end of the year is a great time to do that, to review it, and or in early January there, so you can really set yourself up for a really strong 2025. So again, if you go to the website and have a look at services, management for ads, and then have a look at that page there, it's got a really good rundown on the Amazon ads audit that we do, some case studies, a video there from Seb on what we do, and you can book a call from that page as well. All right, thanks so much, everyone. Really appreciate you listening in. And if you like that, hit a like or give us a comment or subscribe and all of those good things. Really appreciate it. And thanks again, Seb. Good job putting all that together. Thank you.
Thanks, team. Thanks, guys.
All the best. Bye.